thank you, Michelle, for coming on. We are on episode 6, and I've enjoyed every single one of these, and hearing from other people that the messages in these episodes, hit them in their own personal way. And I was thinking, I we didn't talk about this before I hit record, but I was thinking about this like this week. I'm like, okay, I'm positive Michelle and I met
Hmm,
through our friend Melsha
I
at
think
one of
so.
the events. Yeah. And then interestingly, it's another one of those situations where it was like we've also like met in so many of the
Mhm.
other like circles around Edmonton. And just kind of keep popping into each other's lives in Christine's circle. And you were talking about meditation before we came on, and then with our friend Mel. So it's
Yeah.
interesting. It's like the 6 degrees of Michelle all coming in,
Yeah.
right?
So true. Yeah. I think the very first time, just to chime in, the very first time I think that I remember meeting you, because I don't remember any events. Like that's the weird part. Like there's like this weird time suck for that for me. But I remember very well coming to your place with Melsha, and I don't remember who else was there. But it was for when you were doing your teacher meditation training and you had to do like your assignment for, and so Melsha maybe wrangled me in. I don't know. Um, but I remember coming to
Right.
your place and yeah, you're doing your one of your final meditation
Was that
things.
in the basement of
Yeah,
my Edmonton house?
yeah.
Right. I think I had to do like a book study or
Oh, it was the
something.
surrender experiment. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I forgot
Yeah.
about that. And I think I had my grandma's teacups. We had tea, and then I served like just some fruit and stuff like that
Yeah.
because yeah, the surrender experiment. Oh, thanks for bringing that up. I
Mm.
think that's a perfect.
Yeah.
What
I
are the
know, wild,
chances
right?
that that little moment comes up, and probably some of the stuff we're going to talk about it
Yeah.
has a lot to do with the
I love synchronicity.
surrender.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I talked about that moment on a different one of these other episodes about how like I was afraid to start because it wasn't a perfect environment. It's just like cement floor and vapor barrier over the walls. And I was thinking, like, who's going to want to come? And then it's like all these years later, like
Yeah.
probably at least 15 years later,
Oh, yeah. Easily.
um, or 20 years later, like it didn't matter because,
No,
yeah,
and I remember telling you
great
that back
relationship.
then too. Like, I remember you even bringing it up after we did the meditation and like the little walkthrough of the book and stuff. And I remember you just being like, "Oh, I know it's not the greatest environment." Like, you were very apologetic of all the things, and we're all like,
Oh,
"We don't care, right?" We're
right.
all just like, "It's not a
Yeah.
big deal.
Oh,
It's not a big deal."
I'm
Yeah,
so glad I started because ultimately just saying yes and starting to that like has led me to be in connection with like you and so many other
Mhm.
amazing people in my life.
Yeah,
So, yeah, if anything, just say yes.
right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, I certainly wanted to have you on because I know that you have a unique story and I feel like I wanted, and again, I've said this to you, like I want you to share your story, but the part of your story that you feel comfortable sharing, because I think other people can relate,
Mhm.
and maybe they don't have the same support system, and to just hear that someone else is doing
Mhm.
things a little bit differently, um, yeah, I thought maybe
Oh
that might
no.
be important. So
Yeah, you just
I
froze a
think you
little bit,
froze
but
there
yeah,
for a
for
sec,
sure.
but
Okay,
uh,
good. Hopefully it wasn't too bad. Hopefully my internet stays stable. Anyway, it's good internet, but when you need it, that's when it's the worst, right? Yeah, no, I definitely have. We were talking before we got on just about like how, I even got into this space of like holistic healing to begin with. And I didn't grow up with that, right? We grew up with a very allopathic model and you got an ear
Mhm.
infection, you went to the doctor and you got your banana syrup, right? And you carried
Yep.
on. And that was not to say that we didn't do like gardening and all like that kind of stuff, but it wasn't like I didn't grow up, as you would call crunchy, right? Like that sort of movement. People would consider me that now. in a lot of ways, right? But definitely didn't grow up that way. And so, you know, I'll just start, I guess, at the beginning where this all kind of uh, sort of led me to where I am now is that in my
Mhm.
late 20s, early 30s, I got really sick and no one could figure out why. And it was gut issues. I had a chronic cough. The cough wasn't related to anything in my lungs, but they would give me inhalers. Like I, at one point, would walk around with 3 or 4 inhalers and use them, every time I'd cough and it would do nothing, but I would still continually take them. I never asked questions. I was just like, well, my doctors,
Mm.
they tell me this is what I need to do, so I'll do it. And it got really, really bad. And looking back, it's crazy because from the time that I turned 19, I was working 2 and 3 jobs consistently
Oh,
well into my 30s. And not necessarily, well, I guess because I claimed I had to. I just wanted a bougier life than I, could afford, right? So it was like, I'll work. But then it was like, then I had no life because I was working,
wow. The
and
trade-off of
oh,
that.
it was ridiculous,
Yeah.
right? And I lived in Calgary for a while and then found I was coming home for holidays here, and that didn't feel like a holiday because it was, I never got away, I never got to travel. Um, and then in Calgary, all I was doing was working. So then I moved back to Edmonton to have a slower, like to get back to my family and to just kind of slow down. And then I ended up picking up a bunch of jobs. And, I look back now and that was a huge distraction from whatever it was that was chasing me. Um, I know that now because I can sit quiet for hours and just diamond art with no music on and not have any stimulation and be fine. That was never the way I used to be. I had to have the TV on. I had to have
Oh.
music on. I had to be like, there had to be constantly something going. And I don't know what the root of that necessarily is. Um,
When did you notice that that changed? Was that just recently with
Recently.
your,
Yeah, I would say probably the
wow.
last, COVID for sure
Yeah.
definitely changed my need for stimulation. That was for sure. Like I never thought I could work from home. I didn't think I could because I was just constantly having to have the like office vibes, the people, I was like, I'm too social, I'm too social. And then we got locked in. And then I
Oh,
was like, oh,
cool.
I could never
I
go
love
back.
that. I want to stop you there at that. I love that you say that because I think it happens in so many different people's lives where they peg themselves into something that they are,
Yeah,
and then they just live their life through that. It's like, well, I'm too social, I'm too social, but that we don't explore that there's the possibility that there is something else because for so long we've just pegged ourselves into
right.
like some
Yeah.
sort of title, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's just it. And I was like, I think growing up too, I'll get into the meat of it, and this isn't as important, but I was one of those people that was like, I did not want kids. I wanted to have the corporate ladder career. I wanted to have the like, I always had this vision of like, I'm gonna live in this fancy condo in the downtown core, be around all the buzz and the hub, and funny now because I'm like, oh, I would kill to be on a farm, far away from everybody. Like it's such a split. And it's only been like 20 years of that split, right? That it took to get there. And I look back and think, man, I wish I'd have learned this now. But of course, age brings wisdom. And,
Yeah.
obviously this is just a journey. I
Experience.
believe that I was
Mhm.
meant to go on. Like I do believe 100% that, the journeys that we take in life are predetermined in a lot of ways. Obviously we have free will and stuff, but I do think that, you come here to learn a certain set of lessons. And this one definitely was mine to learn in a lot of ways. And yeah, but I definitely like that's why I moved to Calgary. I lived downtown. I was just like, that's what I wanted that like TV corporate job, you know,
Oh,
the success that came with
yeah.
it. And a lot of that maybe came from, just being the first girl in my family, on my dad's side specifically, to graduate, like to finish school, to, be the success. Ironically, now I'm
Wow, that's a
like, oh,
great.
none of that was a success. Like looking back now, I see how then I thought that was a success, but looking where I am now, I'm like, oh, that was just a lot of
Just
fluff, right?
but you're right. I think so many people because similarly, I remember this moment where I was also the first girl to go to university in
Mm,
my family on both sides. And um, I took a lot of pride in that,
mm,
but I didn't realize. then sometimes the responsibility of that. Because later on, when I decided similarly to leave my career in social work, I just felt this immense guilt around like failure. Like you went to university for 7 years, you spent this much money
Yeah.
getting an education, and you're just gonna throw it all. My parents never said that. No one in my family ever said that to me.
Yeah.
That was all on me.
Yeah.
Um, and but it was so interesting to see that I had created that sense of
Yeah. Well, that was
responsibility.
just it. Like I
So
had created that too, and I didn't come from the like white collar type family either, right? Like the dream that I sort of envisioned, I didn't come from that. And that's not to diminish any their side, but I came from a very
yeah,
hardcore blue collar family, right? Very, my dad's a laborer, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, like super traditional, conservative type values, like not politically, just, traditional, the way traditional used to be back in the 70s, right? And
yeah,
um, I wanted nothing to do with that, like nothing. I wanted to be so far removed from that. And now I'm like, oh man, I totally sunk that ship, right? And I don't regret any of it. That's not to say that. It's just more of like I was wrong.
a
Like,
a different
right?
perception now.
Yeah.
Do you think that's because of, we'll get to your story, but do you
Yeah.
think that's because of what you went through that shifted your
That's a good
perception?
question. That's a great question. Maybe, maybe. I also don't think that I would be where I'm at without all of that.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
So, yes, but I think that if none of that had happened, and if I hadn't thought those ways, you know, I mean, even politically, I've swung pretty hard a different way than I did, growing up as well. And not to get into politics, but it's like that, even just looking at that, where I'm like, I had this huge set of beliefs that I was so strong in. And now I've just swung so much differently. And yeah, it could be. It could be. I mean, I definitely have had more of I hate to use this word, but like an awakening, light bulb kind of type moment where life is short, it is fleeting. A lot of the stuff that we worry about does not matter. Yeah. And so things have a
Mhm.
lot of those material type things that I was chasing for many, many years where I burnt myself into the ground, made myself sick, literally became the key to being like, this is not the life you're supposed to live. Right. So
Wow.
yeah.
That's what I always refer to is like our fates, or the
Yeah.
things that, and then when we turn them into our like gifts, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, I went through this and took the lessons from that to now have this.
Yeah. It
And
was
I
hard
think your
learned.
story is a
Yeah.
big inspiration in that.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah. Going to just dive in?
Yeah, like because you were kind of alluding
Yeah.
before about like
Yeah.
your sickness and your,
Oh,
taking
yeah. So,
your
yeah, sorry, go back to that.
puffers
So,
and
in my
stuff.
30s, I was really sick and I lived in the allopathic model exclusively. I just did not even dabble in anything at all. Like, it wasn't even a thought process. It was, you're sick, doctor. You're sick,
Mhm.
your stomach bug, doctor. Um, And so then it got to a point where, it was hard. Like I had this chronic cough. It had been for years, years, and I'd have sinus infections. And like I was just sick all the time, for lack of a better definition. It just was like people knew me more for coughing than they did for just being, right? So, and I would go to my doctor and they would be like, well, your lungs are clear, your air system is clear. And I'm like, well, what is this cough? Here's a brochure for a psychologist. I don't need a psych. My cough's not psychological. I knew that that wasn't the case, but I was tired. I gained weight. I was on yo-yo diets. Like I did all the ridiculous things. One thing that no one ever asked me, and it took years to get to the spot. And I'll talk about this briefly in a minute, but was what I was eating and how I was living. And so, I'm working 3 jobs. I'm an event planner corporately. So I'm working ridiculous hours, sometimes weeks on end with no days off, late, late nights. You're eating out, you're
So even your circadian rhythm, so it's like
shot. Oh,
food,
and I was a night
circadian
owl.
rhythm.
Like me and my sister would still joke.
Oh.
because I'm like 9:30. I'm like, I have to go to bed. And she's like, I don't know who this is. I'm like, I know, because I would be like 2, 3 in the morning and no problem, but I would sleep till 1 or 2. Like I was so shifted on the weekends.
Wow.
And, and then you go out and and I didn't care. Like that's the part that was really, I was very detached from myself, like looking back and knowing
Mm.
like how like dialed in I feel right now. Back then, I was just a body floating around doing their thing. Like there was no groundedness to me whatsoever. I don't even, it's creepy because I think about it and I actually feel like I've lived two lives. Like I feel like there's my life then that I just know the story of, and then me now, and they do not match. Like I
Wow.
don't feel like that past self was me, which is
Yeah.
very weird, but and a whole probably other podcast topic, but
But it does make so much
yeah,
sense to me because like when you're saying that actual connection to self,
yeah.
right? It's like,
Oh, I
yeah, there's
was,
this physical meat suit of Michelle just moving along, checking off the boxes, it's
yeah,
like and you don't have, I think the thing is you don't have anything to compare it to when
no,
you're just in that like go 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 mode.
yeah,
You when people say like, well, do you feel like shit because you're not getting good enough sleep or because you're not eating well, you don't actually know. I remember once the
yeah, it's true.
functional medicine doctor asked me about like, oh well, like do you get bloated after, eating such and such. And then I was just like, oh. And then I was like, maybe, geez, like I don't know. Maybe I'm just bloated all the time, like, and until
Yeah,
you don't know and you fix the issue and you're like, oh, this is what other people feel.
yeah, like a
Like,
baseline, right? Because it's true. I mean, even
yeah.
recently, I'll fast forward to the end of my story quickly, but I was meeting with a doctor at the end of my, like, just, at the end of my experience. I'll share in a brief minute here. But when I got to the end of it, one of the doctors had said to me, on a scale of 1 to 10, how do you feel right now? And I said, like an 11. And the expectation was like they wanted me to say a 2. Like I knew what they were looking for. And this will make sense in a minute or two, but I was like an 11 and she kind of went like, really? And I'm like, yeah, like I feel better than I ever have. And she said, okay, we'll be back. And then she left the room and went and go talk to like the main, it was this intern. She went and talked to the main doctor. And I had said to my mom after, like they weren't expecting that because, people that come in to see these people are often, as you will know, as you know from experience, they're not at 11s. And
Yeah.
the main doctor had said to me, well, what would you consider your baseline? And I said, I would consider my baseline a 2. Like that's what my baseline would have been. So yeah, like I'm not lying. I don't know what to tell you. Like things have shifted. I know I'm not the norm. Like
Like
I get that
I'm
this
not
is
just like
weird,
making up a number like,
right? But she
oh,
was like, this like what would your baseline like if your baseline was what? I'm like, well, my baseline would have been a 2. So yeah, like I definitely swung with no help from you guys, thankfully, right? And this will make sense in a minute or two, as like I said, but yeah, it's weird. So when you don't have that baseline, and they would ask me those questions back then too, when I was not well in my 30s, like, compared to what? And I'm like, compared to what? I've never felt good. I've never felt good. This
right.
is my baseline. My baseline feels like shit. Like to
Yeah.
me, this is good because I don't know what's better because I don't remember feeling better except for when I was a kid. And you don't have any memory of that. Um,
Yeah.
and so my baseline became like a weekly thing where it was like, am I coughing? No. So that's my new baseline, my flare is gone, and then I would run myself into the ground. I would get sick. I'd come up with a sinus infection. The cough would kick in. It would last for 6 months. I couldn't kick it. You know, then something would shift and it would settle for a couple of weeks. And then I'd get sick again. And then it'd flare back up. And it was just a cycle.
Mhm.
And I worked at one company for the entire duration of that. Um, it became an autoimmune condition that we managed to figure out. I'll show that really quickly. But my boss at the time would be like, can you please go in and off? Like I didn't have an office. I was an EA in a open air, desk. And because I'd cough so much, my boss was like, can you please go find an office and shut the door. Like none of us can work because you're just coughing. And I'm like, well, it's because I can't breathe. Like, I don't know what else to do, right? Been to the
Wow.
doctor. Like I've got all these things. You guys have missed me all these days for appointments. Like I don't know what else to do. So fast forward,
Wow.
I ended up leaving that job. I ended up going to a different job, super stressful. I did nothing at it, which is what made it stressful. I went from full strung to not at all. I quit that within 6 months, but by then my confidence had taken a hit. And, I didn't think I was going to be good at anything because for 6 months I had done nothing.
Mm.
Where in the
Wow.
job
And
prior
the
for
fact
11
that you
years,
put all that attention into that, then
yeah.
all of a
Yeah, like I went
sudden,
from like to like nothing. Less
and your
pay, less
self-worth,
work, less
wow.
everything. It was crazy. And
Oh,
so I ended up, finally getting out of that. And then I went into probably one of the most intense jobs I've ever had, where I worked at Little Warriors and we were building the ranch. And I went from doing nothing for 6 or 8 months to working every single day for 8 months without a day, like barely any days off. So it was just this like spiral. And then I was just constantly not well. In between that time, my doctor finally said to me, enough's enough. We're going to get you tested for everything. So I saw like a pulmonologist for my lungs. I saw an allergist. I saw an ENT. I saw a gastroenterologist. I mean, I went to a sleep therapy, like a sleep apnea people. I went to a hematologist because my blood cells were constantly elevated. My white cells were always through the roof. And they were just like, we don't know. Like, we have no idea. You're constantly fighting infection, but we don't know what's causing this. Like, there's just nothing. And so I went to see a gastroenterologist and because I was having gut issues in and amongst all of this other stuff. So they did a colonoscopy and scans. And through that, they found that a random weird growth just above my kidney on my left side. Um, and he called me. I remember at the time I wasn't at Little Warriors and I was still at the job that I didn't like. And he called me and he said, um, how close are you to the Royal Alex? And I'm like, well, I work there. Like I was working in the hospital. And he's like, so I booked you an appointment to see a urologist. Like this was a Wednesday on Friday. They're going to call you today, get you in. You need to see him right away. I'm like, okay. Like urologist was not on my bingo card. I had everybody else,
right?
but my
You're like
kidneys
my
were
lungs.
fine. Yeah, my kidneys were fine. So I was like, what are we doing? Like, what's wrong with my kidneys? And he's like, well, in the scans, we found a weird anomaly. I am not a urologist. I'm not an oncologist. And when he said that, I was like, what? And even then, talking about it right now, I have more fear with this time than I had with my next time, which was way worse. But that's a little tidbit there. But he was like, I don't know what it is. We don't know what it is. Don't jump to conclusions. I'm like, you literally just said the word oncologist. Like that was like, right? Like, what the
Right.
heck? And so he's like, just see this guy on Friday, this doctor, and I'll let you know how your colon, like, we'll get back to you on your colonoscopy report. It's great. So I went to go see the urologist, and he was like, we honestly don't know what this is. Like, we can't tell from the scans. We're gonna have to do biopsy. We're gonna have to do all these things. And I'm like, get it out. Get it out. Cut it out right now. I was very much a like cut and burn, get it gone. Like if it's broken, cut it
Hmm.
out. I'm not that now. I'm like, man, I wish I didn't know all that now, right then. But back then, I mean, I had a gallbladder attack years prior, and I was like, get it out. And they removed it, and it did have to come out, but unfortunately, I wasn't able to fix it. I didn't have the knowledge to fix it, to keep it. So
Right. So it's
it's
like you
just
can
this
keep
like,
taking shit out, but
yes, like,
if you don't, again, if we don't get to the root cause of
right. If your body can't
what's
fully
going
function,
on, the bo
yeah, like you can't keep
Mhm.
taking organs out. We actually need all of our organs, turns out, right? So anyhow, yeah, long story short for that version at least. I went through biopsies, I did all this stuff. My colonoscopy came back that I had an autoimmune condition that was called eosinophil gastroenteritis. And so it was like this weird cell allergen that flares up when you have an allergy flare up or like your immune system feels like it's being attacked. And that was what was causing my cough. So it was my GI tract that was flared up that was causing rapid inflammation in my esophagus. And it would make me cough because my esophagus, like, let's just say it was like this round. It's like it would close so that I could, like, I literally was choking. Um,
Oh.
and so I was like, well, how do I fix this? And he was like, we don't know. Like, it's really new. We really don't know. I would recommend putting you on prednisone. And I was like, not a chance. I knew then enough about prednisone that I was like, I ain't taking it. No way. No how. Like, I've been coughing for 10 years. I'm fine.
Mm.
Like, I
Yeah.
am not gaining any more weight than I already had. I was already large at the time. For myself, like for me, I just felt like garbage. And so I was like, I knew prednisone would make it way worse. And he was like, well, then that's all we can do. Like, then thank you for your time. I'm out. And then the whole urologist thing, it turned out that it was a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma that was just sitting on top of my kidney. It wasn't on my kidney, it wasn't attached. It was just this like weird, I'm going to say hematoma for lack of a better word, because we think I got it from falling out of the tub. But it was like a blood clot that probably just did not, my body did not clean it out. So it became a non-Hodgkin's
Mm.
lymphoma. So right away I was like, get it out. Cancer, get it out. Like that instant fear of you've got cancer, and you know me well enough to know that as many times as I'm saying cancer is not normal for me, I don't
Yeah,
like the
yeah, yeah.
word. So I'm using it just for the purposes of today, but I generally don't use the word. But yeah, it was like, I remember just sitting in my car being told that I had it and just bawling my eyes out. Like, because to me, it was like, it's over. Like, you get
Right.
cancer, you're dead. That's it. Like, it's done.
Yeah.
And, we'd had family members that had had it. Not a ton. My grandma died of brain cancer, but like, still, it was just, there's so much fear around that word. You know,
Hmm.
Even saying that you have it, people are like, oh, I'm so sorry. It's like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, my instinct was automatic to be like, I need to fight
Yeah,
against this
it's like
word.
it equals this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and
Hmm.
it doesn't. It doesn't. Like, I'm here to tell
That's
you it
right.
doesn't. But, uh, back then I was terrified. And so I had gone to see the oncologist and they were toying with maybe giving me chemo for it. And then they just pulled the pin on the whole thing and said, like, we're just going to wait and watch. And I'm like, what? What? And you're like, well, it's small. From the time that you had the scan, the biopsy till now, it doesn't look like it's grown. I'm like, well, what's the life expectancy? That's the question everyone asks, right? When you're diagnosed, what's your life expectancy? It's the worst question you can ask. I don't recommend anybody ever ask it. Your life expectancy is your life expectancy. Just live your life. Period. Don't
Yeah.
ask for a
Quality,
number.
quality versus quantity. I have this
Always,
conversation with a lot of people because often
always.
we go to the quantity portion,
Yeah. Because you
but
want to know
it's
how much
like,
time you have left. And the
yeah.
reality is that you could have 100 years or you could have 2 months. You don't know. We don't know, you and I sitting here today. So
Mhm.
I just think it's such a disservice in that industry because it is that specific industry more than any, I think, that puts a number on it. Doctors are very quick to say, get your affairs in order. Um,
Yeah.
and yes, that may warrant it. I think everyone should get their affairs in order today, regardless of a diagnosis.
Yeah.
You shouldn't need a
Yeah.
diagnosis to do that. But yeah, so uh, they waited and watched. I later learned a full year and a half later that the reason they waited and watched is because I was so unhealthy that they did not think I could withstand the treatment. They never told me that. And I only
Mm.
found it because I requested all my records from my file for insurance purposes. And it was in there that, the patient,
Oh.
severely obese, 32-year-old, whatever it was at the time, well, yeah, 32, I guess I would have been. I don't remember how old I was. But anyway, it was like, yeah, it was just, I remember reading it being, what? But in that time, I decided that I didn't like being the weight I was in the wait and watch period. And I was like, part of me was like, okay, you need to get healthy. Like maybe you can help yourself, right? A little bit. I didn't know anything about holistic health or eating or anything, but I joined Beachbody because, what else do? You watch infomercials and you get, want the fancy body. So I did
Yeah.
the Shakeology, which I still love. I don't take it anymore, but I love that product. And I did lose a lot of weight and enough that I was feeling good and I was active and I was exercising and I did improve. So I went for my follow up scan a year later, and the doctor called me after the scan, and I was expecting her. This is hopeful thinking. I was expecting her to call me and be like, "Hey, so it's gone. Like it was so small, and you're so healthy now. It's gone, right?" And
Right.
we misdiagnosed it. And she calls me and she's like, I need you to come in. And I said, well, for what? And she's like, I just need you to come in. I'm like, well, it's not like you're going to tell me it's gone, right? She's like, I wouldn't call you to, like, you wouldn't need to come in for that. And I'm like, shit. So then I go and it had grown 5 to 7 centimeters, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it had almost tripled in size in the year.
Mm.
So it went from like, we have no concerns, it's not growing, to it had tripled in size in a year. And I'm like, what are we doing right now? This is insane. And so I was like, I want this out now. And nobody would cut it out. They were all like, it's evasive. We're going to have to T-bone cut you, to get in there. It's behind your kidney. Your kidney is very healthy. Like we're not going to go in and cut it out. And to me, it was like, it's cancer, cut it out. Let me carry on. Right. That
Right.
same attitude became a similar attitude that I've had recently again. But it was just like, get it out. And I now know that that's always not the best, but they did put me through 21 rounds of radiation, which I did. And it was brutal. It was the hardest thing ever. And I'll just shorten this end up because the other part's more important. But after that, was like, I will never do this again. Like, I immediately said after those treatments were done, and radiation is considered the easy of the two, right? Between chemo and radiation, it's considered the easier. And it wasn't. I was sick the whole time. They shot through my stomach wall. So I was nauseous. I mean, they may as well have given me chemo. It would have been the same feeling.
Mm.
Um, or similar feeling. I was on heavy medication for nausea, and this is what led me to sort of my crunchier lifestyle was I could not eat because of the radiation going through my stomach to get to the back wall. And my radiation oncologist had said to me, you need to eat. And I said, well, I can't. Like, I just can't stomach. I can't stand the smell of food. Like, I can't. And he said, well, I'm
Mm.
going to send you to a dietitian and, she can help you. Okay. So I go see her. She's at the Cross Cancer for those that are from Edmonton. And she walks in, she asks me what I'm doing, like what's going on, why I'm there, as if she didn't read my file beforehand, which drives me crazy about that. And I said to her, well, I can't stomach protein specifically. And you guys want me to get my protein up. Like, I need that. I can't do it. And so she recommended I drink Boost. And I remember looking at her. Now, this is someone who drank 3, 4 liters of Pepsi a day. So it wasn't like I did drink chemicals. I did. But there was just something about Boost that was like, what? Like, I'm literally here trying to fix my health. I know Pepsi's not healthy, but I know Boost isn't either. Right. And so it's like, I am no, like, no. And so her and I went back and forth for a couple of minutes. And at the end of the meeting, she said, look, I think we're wasting each other's time. Like, you're clearly not listening to me. And I remember thinking, like, yes, but this is weird. Like, how are you recommending all of these like processed products? Like, I was looking for recipes. I was looking for cheats on how to get meat palatable. Like, I don't know what I was looking
Right.
for, but what she was giving me was not it. And looking back, I don't know where I had that knowledge because I lived a very toxic lifestyle. I drank pop all day long. I would brag that I couldn't remember the last time I drank water. I would eat fast
Right.
food on a daily. Like,
Isn't that so interesting though?
yeah.
When like I find that fascinating because sometimes I talk to people too. It's like when we justify the things that like the pop, like the fast food, like those things. And then when something is recommended to us, whether it maybe be a medication or like in this instance, Boost or Ensure, um, and there's this possible side effect of this thing, or we know this, and that we'll say no to that, but we still continue this. I find it fascinating. It's just
Cognitive dissonance
human.
is real. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
crazy. It's when you start to like really kind of hone in on like what you'll allow in your life versus won't is crazy. Right. And so like I've gotten way good at like discerning stuff now where I'm just like, nope, doesn't feel good. I'm out. Like it's a non-negotiable, right? Where I was never like that. I was always
right.
kind of like, I'm on the fence. But yeah, so
Oh,
that goes back to now Melcha. I had decided after that, like something needs to shift. I cannot keep working the hours that I'm working. I was at Little Warriors at the time, working crazy hours and, doing, if I wasn't working at the ranch, building it with the team, I was out doing talks and not blaming the work. It was like, I jumped in, I volunteered for all of that stuff and was like, I'll do it. I'll do it. I was like the yes girl.
Mm.
I still am a recovering yes girl. It's hard for me still to say no on a lot of things, especially stuff I like doing. But, it was, oh, it was just such a crazy time. And so I remember just thinking, I need to find something else. Like, I need to find something that's just for me. I didn't like exercise. So it wasn't like going to the gym was therapeutic for me. It was a pain. I didn't like walking. I was bored. I get bored walking by myself, even if I listen to music. Like, I just had an excuse for everything, everything. So
Do you
then,
think at the time you would have called it an excuse, or is it because you fast forward it and you know what you know
no, I
now?
knew it was an excuse. I knew that
Oh,
I
you
was
knew.
stubborn. Yeah,
Ah,
I knew. And it was just like, I just didn't care. Like, it was, you know, now
wow.
also looking back, I think that I was in a very deep, long depression that was definitely like
Mm.
one of those high functioning depressions where I just didn't care. I didn't care. Right. And I definitely had an attitude of like, we're all going to die of something anyway. I had that before I got diagnosed. And then when I got diagnosed, I was like, oh, just kidding. I don't want to die, right?
Right.
And you got this fear, and then you're like operating from a place of fear. And then, I got the news that the tumor was irradiated from the radiation, and yay, you're cancer free after so many years. 5 years, I got my clearance, and I was good. But those habits never changed. That was the craziest part, right? Like I just was like, okay, now I'm healthy again. Back into and I'm going to call it a depression because, for lack of a better word, what held me in that energy, I don't know what it was. Like, I don't know what was holding me in that energy. Um, but in
Right.
between then I was fighting to get out, right? Like there was a part of me that was like, I can't stay in this field. I can't stay in this energy field. I have to say, like, I have to get out. And I don't remember where I heard about it. I don't remember how I learned about it, but Mandy Trapp had just opened lifestyle meditation. And I was like, I'm just going to go take a meditation class. And I didn't even dive into like traditional meditation. I took one of Christine Frazier's classes where it was like a spiritual, like spirit guides thing. So I was like, well, this will be interesting. I get to meditate and learn about, you know, folklore or like stuff. And so I went there and I struggled because I remember the early days of working with Christine. I worked with her the most. She was like, I just gravitated towards her workshops and stayed in her lane the whole time. And I took every single one of her spirit guide things, like every single one of them I could do, I took. Although I would not do her transformational healing ones. There was like this, like, I cannot do it. So that was years later.
Mm.
But in the meditation at Mandy's studio, I remember being so frustrated that I spent the like 30 or $40 for the course or the class. It probably wasn't even that much. And I could not meditate. I could not sit in that space. I was like
Mm.
all over the place. And, we would come out of this beautiful meditation and people would have these like, I saw this waterfall and river and like there were birds flying and the sky was blue. And I'm like, I saw black.
Mm.
And she'd be like, that's okay. And I'm like, no, it's not. Like, I can't meditate.
Right.
Like, what is wrong with me? Right. And so it was like this, but I kept going and I just kept trying. And the more I go, the more she'd say to me, Michelle, some people don't get the vision. Some people don't see that. It's like, you just need to just be. Don't have any expectation, right? Of what it's like to be meditated. But I think we as a society see people like, and you're just like zened out and you're this perfect person and, nothing ever aggravates you and you're like this calm person and you're never anxious or agitated or excited. And it's like, no, the best meditators are probably just as goldfish brain as I am, right? But they've just
Yeah.
learned
But
to
I
dial it
think in
in.
that moment, from what you've described your lifestyle was like,
Mhm.
to like thinking that you can go to a space of like even the word like when you just said to just be like
Yeah.
for some people that is not safe. Like
No.
to just be means I gotta sit with my
Yeah.
shit. I gotta sit with myself.
Yeah.
And to be chronically avoiding self for so long.
Well, exactly. And because like I said, I was someone that had to have the TV on all the time. Like I put my TV over here, but like the TV had to be on all the time. From the time that I woke up, the first thing I did was turn on my TV to me falling asleep on the
Yeah.
couch at the end of the night, turning off the TV. And if I didn't have the TV on, it was music. And if like same with driving, like I could not drive with nothing in the car. Like it always had to have like the loudest boom, 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 and I so am not that person anymore at all. Like it's
Right.
crazy now. I'm like, I have to turn the radio off because I can't stand the overstimulation.
Oh.
This is wild.
That makes me wonder too, like when you talk about that disconnect,
Mm,
it's like were all those outside stimulants the things that were reminding you that you're here, right? And
yeah,
then when things go quiet, it's like there there's a little bit of resonance in that like who am I? What am I? And
yeah,
then it's like, oh, I need something, especially when you talk about that depression, right? Because
yeah,
sometimes you fall into that and it's like it's like I need something to feel alive.
yeah. But and that was like me working, right?
Oh.
Like it was the same. It was like if I was moving, if I was involved in organizations, if I was volunteering, if I was doing all the things, if I was running, 8 a.m. until midnight, then like people needed me. I needed to be somewhere. I was important. Like that definitely was, I can say that now. Then would that have been the thought process? No. Like I've always kind of thought of myself as a fairly humble person where I don't like to take credit for things. And like, I'd plan these events and people would be like, oh my God, I'd be like, it's just my job, and so I always kind of played that
Mhm.
humble role. But I think internally it was like I had this like visceral need to be like you're needed, you're wanted, like people, like if I could offer my services of being the president of an organization or volunteering and speaking for Little Warriors, in addition to the job that I worked for them, 9 hours a day and all this stuff. It was like, who else would do it? And so it was like this almost
Right.
like a martyr type personality where it was
Wow.
like I was needed out there. And yeah, it was crazy. So, I look back and think like this is why I was so sick. And yet the sickness was teaching me to get out of that. Like it was trying to slow me down. It was like, look, you're not listening. You're clearly running to the fire nonstop. What are we doing here? So it was like, well, we're gonna flatten you. And then I was like, no, you're not. I would just like run through the illness. And so after the whole first cancer debacle, I and the dietitian thing just threw me. Like I was just like, this is messed up. Like this woman was, I now know the difference between like holistic health and dietitians, and those worlds are not the same. Dietitians are definitely, and I'm not knocking them, they're very allopathic in their training. And I wasn't looking for that. And I know that now. And that was where her and I for that
Mm.
disconnect. But I then had gone to one of Melsha's events. It was one of her shift events, one of actually her first one. And I met Marie Tower, who was a certified holistic nutritionist. And we're not allowed to call her a nutritionist anymore in Alberta, but at the time, that was the title that she had. Or I think she's a registered holistic nutritionist. Alberta's not allowed to use that title anymore. But she did a talk on like hormone health and from the very like holistic side of things. And I remember just being like, oh, who are
Oh.
you? Like, where did you get this training? Where did you learn this stuff? Like, this is what I've been looking for. And I could find nothing about any of it. And
Mm.
I sat with her and talked to her in that event, and she was like, "Well, I took my nutrition training through the sort of like the Canadian School of Natural Nutrition." I was like, "What is this place? Like, how come I need to know more about it?" And within the year of that, I had registered and got into that class, and it wasn't a class, it was a course, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was 2 to 3 nights a week on minimum. We would finish like so you would take like biology 101, let's call it. Um, or I don't even remember any of the titles of the courses now, but you would do like what normal people would take in 6 months in one semester at university, we would cram in a month. And so like one whole month we would do a class
Mm.
and it would just be like that whole month was that. So, you'd spend 6 months in university taking biology, we would spend 1 month learning the exact same
Mm.
level of stuff. And our pass grade was 80. And I had never done anything like that. Like I could not get through school without like 70s was a huge success for me, right? So to
Right.
sign up for
So
this expensive
you're
course,
pushing yourself
oh
again in different.
yeah. And
Oh.
so I quit Little Warriors because I couldn't commute back and forth to go to school and do, they were way far out of the town. And anyway, I went to a job that was harder than any job I've ever had. Like I just kept running towards fires, but I did the school thing
Oh,
and that shifted everything for me. So I could preach, but I did not practice. And I graduated and it was like the best thing ever. But during that, uh, oh, my story's so long. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get like to the good part. One of the teachers that we had was a naturopath. And she heard me coughing because I still had my cough. I just decided I was going to live with it. And she came up to me after one of the exams that we had written and put a sticky note on my desk. And it was like a note to take a specific supplement um, and to come see her after class. And so I'm just like, this is crazy. So I went up and talked to her. And I know hers Dr. Janice. Her last name is impossible to say. She'd be like, no, it's not Michelle, but I can't pronounce it. And she was phenomenal. Her sister had been diagnosed with what I had, and she recognized the cough. And so she had told me to take a product called quercetin, and she told me the dosage that I should take and to go that next day and buy it. And since that day, I've been remote, like completely almost in remission from any of that. Like I don't have any flare ups, they're very rare. Um, she rocked my world. Like she completely changed everything. And so I started to see her as a patient outside of school because even with my knowledge at school, I still couldn't get things honed in, which, it's kind of like the carpenter who
right.
can't build his own cabinets, right? Like it was sort of like I
Yeah.
know how to fix myself, but I just could not. It was like this wall. I can fix
I
you.
remember,
I
mhm.
can
I
fix
remember you
you.
and I, yeah, I
Yeah.
remember you and I having that conversation. And before I even hit record, where I was saying, like, you were saying, like, I was signing up for this, I was signing up for this, I was signing up for this. It's like we're becoming an expert,
Yeah.
but only for everyone else.
Yeah.
And I remember when I heard this statement, and maybe you've heard this in your own, but I remember kind of in this period where I was like, why aren't clients coming? And it was like this statement was, you need to walk the talk.
Mhm.
And that's where I realized that I was spending way more time talking about
Yeah.
what needed to be done versus actually embodying it, actually doing it, actually living it, and being someone that people are like, "What is she doing?"
Mhm.
Versus me just being like, "You should do this, you should do this, you should do this,"
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I
right?
came out of
Did
that
you
course. I was,
recognize that?
oh, 100%. And it was hard
Yeah.
because I came out of that course very heavy, like very overweight. And it's like, how do you become a certified holistic nutritional consultant? That's the official title we're allowed to use, and teach people how to eat and how to get their life under control with their health. And I am a hot mess. Like, right? Just like it was awful. And I knew that. And I used to say too, like I would never go to a fitness trainer that had never been overweight. I would never learn from someone who's never been in my shoes. And so conversely, how could I ever teach somebody to get healthy when I
Mm.
was the epitome of the complete opposite? Like, here, you should probably eat some carrots while I drink my Pepsi. Like, it was just insanity, right? And like, I knew that. Like, I knew there was a disconnect. And so it was like, I came out of
Yeah.
that course really hopeful because I went into it thinking maybe this will be a career change for me. Like, I'll get out of the corporate
Mm.
gear. I didn't like that. Still not a huge fan of it. I'm in it, but I'm more dialed in with other stuff. So I feel okay with it. But back then it was like, this will be a career change, right? I'm going to learn this skill. I'm going to go work and do personal nutritional consulting. And then I realized like, I can't, no one's going to come to me. No one's going to look at me and be like, I want what you have because I sucked at what I
Mhm.
had. Right. And I was not walking the walk. And conversely, I became like a course addict. So I was taking Reiki. I remember taking Reiki, I think my second level with you. And, I was just doing Reiki. And then I was doing, I did my meditation teacher training during COVID. Like I was always chasing all these like health
Mm.
modalities. And I did them under the guise of I want them for my own self, which has been hugely beneficial. But there was always this like little, you know, voice in the back of my head being like, this will be your out. This will be what gets you fixed. This will be what. you can do a career in. This is what you can help people with. Um, and then no sooner than I would finish it, I'd be like, yeah, I don't practice Reiki. I don't do meditation daily. Like, how do I get on a Zoom?
Yeah, that actually living it
I didn't live
versus
it. How do I
taking
get
it.
on here and be like,
Yeah.
meditation is such a wonderful tool and I do it every day and then go zone out watching 2020. Like I did not do it. So it was like I felt like a
Oh.
fraud. And there is this like, we talk about imposter syndrome and I had the worst of it, but because I didn't practice it, like I was an imposter because I was an imposter, right?
It wasn't a syndrome. It was
It was for real. Like, look at me. I finished this
Mhm.
course. I got this accreditation. And then people will be like, great. Can you help me? And I'm like, no, no, not really. Right. Like, you
Yeah.
don't want to hear from me really. And so it just became this thing. Um, and then COVID hit, we got locked down and I became the course queen during that time. Cause what else do you do when you're stuck at home? And online courses were the rage. And so I just took death doula stuff. I did like anything that was of interest, I took it. I've been a lifelong learner, but people would hear I would share that I was doing it and then there were expectations that like I would continue talking about it and then it would just be like a firework, right? And then just gone. Right? So I would pop up
Oh.
and then disappear. And I've always been very cognitive of that. Like I've always recognized that. And then there's this guilt behind you that you're like, you're doing all these things, sharing all this stuff. People are excited for you. And then you just like drop off. I now realize that most people probably didn't pay attention as much as I thought they were. But at the time it
Mhm.
was like, here's another thing that you just, biffed it on. Right. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was just kind of weird. And anyway, I just went south really fast. Like it just, it was the heaviest I've ever been last year. Me and my brother and my parents purchased the house that we're in to help him with support for long term and stuff. And I was in an apartment that I hated and I just wasn't doing great. And a year prior to all of that happening, like I guess 2 years ago now, I had noticed a little tiny bump in my right breast. And everybody would be like, you should have saw a doctor. Yes. But I had been so disappointed in my whole experience prior and had learned so much in my nutritional training course with allopathic model and how flawed it is that I had swung so far that I was like, I'm going to see a doctor. Like, I'm just not.
Oh. Yeah.
And I didn't have a great doctor anymore. And during COVID, they weren't taking clients. Obviously, nobody was. You had to do a teleconference, and I wasn't going to go call my doctor on the phone. Like, I didn't need to see them. I didn't feel sick. I was overweight. I wasn't healthy, but I didn't need to see them. And so when I got this bump, I didn't ignore it. I knew it was there, but it would fluctuate. And I'm perimenopausal, so it was like my hormones I knew were all over the place. I was reading up on breast cysts because it felt like a cyst. It felt very fluid and like pliable. It wasn't hard like a tumor. And so I was like, it's a cyst. 99% of the time, they're benign. I'm perimenopausal, like carry on. And it just was like that for a whole year. And no one ever noticed it. You couldn't see it. I wore normal bras. I would wear low cut shirts. You wouldn't see, like it was not visible. It wasn't even there all the time. There were two occurrences though that I'd be, Opie with my dog would like to like he'll walk, kind of owns me. And so he'd walk on me and I'd be like, ooh, that was painful. Like it felt like it was infected. But then within a couple of days it would go away and it would dissipate like to be almost non-existent again. And then I'd be like, yeah, it is what it is, right? So in the back of my brain, I was worried, but at the same time, it was like it constantly is changing. That's not the MO of a breast tumor. That's the MO of a breast cyst. Everything online, even the cancer sites will tell you not to worry about a cyst, and then if it grows to get it checked, but it wasn't growing, it was shrinking and then it would get back to normal size and then it would shrink. And so I was playing this game. Last year we moved into this house I moved in on April 15th. And ironically or not, there's no synchronicities. The exact day today, my best friend Teresa had come up to Edmonton to see the house. And her and I were sitting out on my deck, and she's like, Mitch, what do you have in your shirt? And I'm like, nothing, nothing. She's like, oh, it looks like you're wearing your cell phone. And I was like, someone else notices it besides me. Shit. And I was like,
Oh,
yeah, my right boob
that
is
gives
just
me
really,
goosebumps.
yeah, I'm like, my right boob is just really big. My right breast is just really big. I'm like, I don't really know what's going on. I had this little tiny cyst that was kind of fluctuating. And then all of a sudden it just went, but it wasn't like, to me, it wasn't huge. I don't remember it going from like normal to swollen. I don't have
Mm.
any recollection of that. She was the first one to notice it. And it was today that she noticed it, but a year ago. And she was like, you're definitely lopsided. Like, it looks like you have your cell phone in your bra. And I used to wear my cell phone all the time in my bra. So that wasn't an uncommon thing. And I was like, no, no, that's just my boob. She's like, can you please go get this checked? And I'm like, it's fine. Like, look it. And I push it like a party joke, right? I'm like, it's fine. Look it. Like, it's squishy like a balloon, you know? And she's like, just please go get it checked. And I'm like, yeah, 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 I will. But I didn't have a doctor. So I had learned prior, about 6 months, I was sick. I had a cold that would not go away. And I tried to get in to see my doctor, and they told me I was no longer a patient after 48 years at that clinic. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because I chose not to go see them during COVID. So they closed my file. And I'm like, why would I come
Oh.
see you? You were closed. Like, why would I call my doctor to just be like, hey, you can bill me? Like, this is,
Right. And I think often too, right, we think that, oh, we're not sick or we're not feeling, so why would we go, right? And then yeah, then
and then when you're
there's a
sick, you need a
punishment.
doctor. And then they're like, well, we're not going to take you.
Mm.
And so I ended up going to emergency care. And there's a lot of things that are like, they're on my blog. I can share
Yeah,
that
I'm
later.
gonna
But
post, I am gonna
yeah,
post your blog in
there's weird
the
things that kind of like
notes
clued
too.
in that I should have paid attention sooner. Like my tattoo on my hand did not heal for a long time, like things that weren't clicking should have.
But
Um,
when you're that disconnected,
oh,
like you were saying
yeah.
before, it just makes sense that all these things you just keep putting over here on the shelf.
Yeah. And if you don't pay attention to it, then does it disappear? Like, right? You're just like that cognitive
Oh.
dissonance. And I think that's a society thing too, like just to get into like my little soapbox. I feel like there's a lot of cognitive dissonance in a lot of aspects of our lives, as we live them. And the more you see, the more you get out of that yourself and realize,
Mhm.
like, take the radical, this, I'm a big, like, radical accountability person, where I'm like, the more you realize what you contributed, right or wrong, the more you can see how people are kind of walking zombies in a lot of ways in aspects of their life,
Yeah.
because it's just easier to not, it was easier for me to pretend that I wasn't sick than it was to acknowledge
Hmm.
the fact that I could be really sick. Right. And
Yeah.
so anyway, I ended up going to see a doctor at the end of May last year. And when she saw me, she was completely flabbergasted. And that was probably the first time that I was actually a little bit scared because of her reaction. And she's like, does it hurt? I'm like, it doesn't. And I had gotten pretty large at that point. I couldn't wear a bra. And she was like, you need to see, like, we need to put you through to the Alberta breast cancer. Oh, I forgot what they're called now. Anyway, it's this
Comprehensive breast cancer
comprehensive
program.
breast cancer
Yeah.
program. I should have known it. I'm so disenfranchised
Mhm.
with them that I've like totally put their names out of my brain now. But I used to know it very well. But yeah, so anyway, I got referred to them, and long story short, quick version, I was I fought the whole system the whole way. They did an aspiration. I got really, really sick. That was at the beginning of June. They did my first aspiration. They removed 1.4 liters of fluid out of the cyst. And at the time, there was no like concern. It was like my scans came back showing that there wasn't anything of an anomaly. My fluid came back tested as malignant. And so then I was like, okay, ding, ding, round two, here we go. Like, this isn't good. But what had been sort of explained to me was that the fluid was epithelial in nature, and epithelial could be anywhere in the body. And so the way cancer works and the way tumors work is that a tumor is often the villain in a lot of stories. And the reality is that the tumor is actually the hero. The tumor is the reason why you're still alive. And it's keeping all of that cells kind of
Con-
contained as opposed to it just being like
Mhm.
all over. I knew that, right? I knew that. And I learned that from my first go around and the damage that I had done. in following the system to a T. Um, I'd experienced a lot of things. I didn't go into detail with that, but I just knew that I wasn't going to go down that same path this time. There was just no chance. And I'm definitely someone of my word. Like when I say I'm going to do something, may not be like I'll start a job in the career or like the course that I took, but if I say, I'm not going to do chemo, that's 100% it's not going to happen. So some things I'm super strong in, others not. And anyway, they did the aspiration. It came back epithelial in nature malignancy. They couldn't figure out what that was. So they're like, we need further testing. They wouldn't send me for scans. Like it was just this like weird, like you can't see a tumor. You're saying the fluid could be coming from any of my other glands, like your other organs, right? Pancreas, liver, lungs. I could have had cancer in any one of those places, and the cells would have just been migrating there, right? Like I could have had a tumor somewhere else, but the fluid would have been
Right.
migrating somewhere else, or my body would have been treating it differently. But they wouldn't send me for scans, and I fought for them. I offered to pay for it. They were just like, it's not going to tell us anything. I'm like, you literally think it could have spread. Like, why wouldn't you scan me to tell
Mm.
me where it is? Scans are a little bit an anomaly too, where you're just like, do you really need all these scans too? Like they also can be problematic. So it's like, okay, maybe I don't want them. Anyhow, fast forward, they did do a biopsy. I fought the biopsy for a month and a half. I did not want it. The aspiration had made me really, really sick and made it worse, made it way worse. And so I was like, if you're actually going to puncture the lesion, you just punctured my skin to drain fluid, and I was sick for 2 weeks, could not function.
Mm.
If you're going to puncture the lesion, what does that mean? Like, what's that going to look like for me? Because it's made the first time, it wasn't even a biopsy and it made it worse. They're like, well, unfortunately, until you do this, you can't see a surgeon. So that was my whole goal, was just get this thing off. Like I knew from the beginning, I was sort of like Dr. Pimple Popper, right? Like well, I'm just going to go in, they're going to pull the cyst package out, they'll sew me back up. I'll carry on with my day. The malignancy changed things. Obviously, that wasn't going to be that simple. But at the same time, I was like, I still don't understand. Why can't you just go in and take the cyst out, clear out the system, area? I will do what I need to do on my end, and we'll call it a day. And they were like, it's not how this works. And it was just this push, pull, push, pull. And yeah, so I ended up getting a biopsy. It turned into well, we didn't have the stage until after my surgery, but it was triple negative breast cancer, which is considered one of the worst, if not the worst types to get. And, I was schooling my family, like, I do not have cancer. I do not own it. I will not own it. I have mitochondrial dysfunction. That's what I told everybody. And they kind of laugh. And I'm like, no, for real. Like the word
Yeah.
cancer we talked about at the beginning, has such an ugly connotation. And a lot of that is to me, I think, and, this might, get under some people's skin. Um, to me, it's a business model. And that word lives
Mhm.
in the business model. And I don't disagree that there's people that are in it to help people and that it does help people, the system, the allopathic system. But it needs to catch up. And at the end of the day, it is a business model. It is a massive moneymaker in a lot of ways. And I do think that the way we treat it has to be looked at very differently for
Mm.
a lot of reasons. But so I fought it. I was definitely one of those irritating patients that was like, I'm not playing by your rules, and they're like, well, then we're not helping you. And it was like, okay, well, I'll play by this rule, but not this rule. Right. And I
Right.
had to start
Right.
negotiating with it a little bit. And I fought really hard to get to the spot that I got. But every time they did puncture the cyst, it did get worse. And, fast forward post surgery, I ended up having surgery. I'm going to fast forward this because it's really long, but
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
ended
And I'll
up
send people to
getting,
your blog so they can see
yeah,
all
for
the
sure. And so it did get
details
really
too.
bad. It got necrotic. The cyst collapsed. I ended up having fluid coming out all the time. The very last time I had it drained, my surgeon sent me in. Like I saw a surgeon. That was by nothing but the grace of God, honestly, because they weren't going to let me see him for 2 months. And it was a doctor who was not my normal doctor that I had been seeing, who was completely, he was horrified. Um, at the condition that I was in at the time because my skin was starting to break. It had gotten so large, my skin was breaking and it had gone necrotic. And I had been to multiple doctors, CT, like ultrasounds, like all these doctors, and nobody flagged it as like, walk, 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 like she needs to be helped. And everyone was just like, well, you might have to come back and get it aspirated. You know, it was like, it was no big deal. And so I was like, well, I guess it's not like this must happen more often. But I couldn't find anybody online with anything that looked like me. And so then I went to see this doctor on a Medi-Center type visit at my clinic. And he was like, you needed to see a surgeon last week. Like, this is insane. You need to be in surgery by the weekend. And I'm like, yes, please. Like, I wanted surgery for 3 months, but this would be great. This was like the beginning of August. And so I finally got in to see the surgeon a week after my lymph node biopsy was done. And yeah, you can read it on my blog, but my surgeon was just completely like, he's been doing this work. He's a oncoplastic breast surgeon. So his specialty is in oncoplasty. And he's been doing this for a lot of years, like 15 plus years, studied at the Paris Breast
Yeah.
Institute. Like this guy has seen some things and he's a general surgeon. And my mom asked him during my appointment, have you ever seen anyone present like this? And he said, never once, not in my career, not once, like never. He's like, I don't even know how to, like, I don't know how we're going to fix this. Like, you're so inflamed, you're so swollen. Even with surgery, like, I may not have enough skin to close you up. So I was like, okay, you know, and then he said, well, we'll have to do chemo first. And I said, no, no, I'm not doing it. And his response to me was, well, then this will kill you. And I just went, okay,
Mm.
all right. That's, I guess, you know, and my mom's just, you know, for the first time, she's hearing all of the gravity of this. And, you know, she starts crying. And I'm just like, I'm checked out. Like, I was listening to him. I heard every word he said. But I'm like, well, if this is it, then I'm just going to live the quantity of my life to the best that I can. And I am not doing chemo because I just knew with an open wound, the way I had it, that chemo was a downhill slope for me. Like, you cannot go into
Mm.
chemo with an infection like I had and expect to come out of it feeling good. What I didn't add, and I know we're getting long, what I didn't add at the beginning of this was I had shifted gears as soon as I was diagnosed, right out of the gate, to dive into my holistic stuff. And it was like, I went on to herbs. I went into a complete diet change. I cut out all sugar. Like, I just went full tilt. And, you know, people are like, you're losing so much weight. Is that the disease? And I'm like, nope, it's literally because I'm not eating fast food. I stopped drinking Pepsi Cold. Like, everything just was like,
Wow.
if
So this
I,
particular thing
it was a catalyst,
was the catalyst.
100%.
All of a sudden, do you remember like what switched? Like where, like,
Yeah,
because
the
I think
report. So
when
my
talking to
doctor
you,
that I,
oh,
yeah, my doctor that I had that was freaked out that recommended me to the comprehensive breast care program. People like that's just what you do in Alberta. You get referred out. Um, that was a lot. Like, I only saw her one other time after that. So anytime I would go for tests or biopsies or reports, she was supposed to call me and book an appointment and review my reports with me. Right? That's what doctors do, and she never did. So I ended up having to read. Like, I went on to Connect Care and reading all of my own reports, and I would use AI to dumb them down so I could understand them. Um, because I would call to book an appointment and they'd be like, well, her next appointment's in August. And like, do you understand? Like, I'm not just a cold and flu patient. Like, I need her to tell me what's going on. I have no
right.
support, like, at all. You know, well, the
So you
comprehensive
took
breast care,
your health by the reins.
I
You
had
were
to.
like, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to take it by the reins.
Yeah, the day that I saw malignancy on the report, I can still see it. It was like, you know, cells malignant. I was like, oh, I ain't doing this again. No, nope. It was like, this was it. This was it. This is your last chance. If you don't course correct right now, it's like a one way out. Like, I knew that if I did not
Hmm.
fix what I needed to fix that day, it was going to be, it was over. Like, my doctor would be right. This
Right.
would kill me. Like, I was already on that peak, and it was like, you're going to either come down or you're going to slow them down. Like, you're going to take control of this mountain, or you're going to get an avalanche, and
Yeah.
you ride that wave, right?
Wow.
So
Yeah.
there was no like, oh, I can dabble, I can play around with things. It was like, I need to like full in dive, and so I did. worked with an Indigenous elder with Nipsey and, got onto her stuff. She's got an amazing, I don't like that she calls it this, but it is what it is. It's a cancer package of herbs that are very anti-cancer. And I immediately did that. And, I got with a functional pharmacist and I just dialed into everything I had ever learned. And I started, following people that had not only had cancer, but had beaten it holistically and, survived it and gotten healthy from it and like used it as a catalyst for good, not for, you know, um, the energy suck that it was, right? Like I was like, I can't follow people
Right.
that are like, oh, I'm on my fifth chemo and I feel like shit. Out. I don't want to hear it. And it wasn't that I'm empathetic, not
Right. So it's
empathetic
like
to
it,
that person's journey.
right.
It was like that is not the energy I can live in. I cannot live in this like, oh, poor me, I have cancer energy. I cannot. I have one life. This is it. I've already been, you know, diagnosed one time. I had meningitis in between that time. I've had autoimmune. Like I've had the door knocking where the, spirit has said to me, I'm trying to get you to listen and you're not. And this was the final like, are you there? Oh, I got my dogs going knocking, but
Yeah.
are you there? Because if you're not there, like you're gonna come
Mm.
very soon. So this is your opportunity to switch that gear. And so I'm so grateful for the training that I had because I didn't use it then. It like I just dialed it in. So it just became very like intuitive. I immediately went into fasting without even realizing what I was doing. I went into like a 16-8 fast mode. And then I was like, I didn't even know to do that. Like I just intuitively started to do things that, you know, people are
Mm.
like, how did you know? I'm like, I don't know. It just was this like, I'd get like a ping and
Maybe
it'd be
that
like, okay,
connection
and it
took
was,
place,
yeah,
right?
it was like things that mattered didn't anymore. Like things that used to grind my gears, families getting upset about things happening or not happening, you know, little tiffs between people or like following politics online. Like I used to be super vocal about that. It's like I can't stomach it. I just like I'm informed, but now I can't be in that energy space. So I just very intuitively started to pull myself out of it. And I
Mm.
ended up having to go for emergency surgery. That wasn't planned. And it was because the cyst had collapsed after they put the drain in. They'd taken out 13 and a half pounds of fluid. Um, and over the week that that drain was in, that I could drain it every day so that it didn't refill, the whole thing just collapsed. And there's a lot of divine intervention, I think, in that happening. My surgeon just
Mm.
happened to be on call that weekend for general surgery. They were able to kind of put me through, which is not common. It's not even, I shouldn't even say it's common. It's not something they ever do. Like the hospital had no idea how to put me in because I wasn't an emergency, but I was an emergency, but I was an emergency on Wednesday and I wasn't getting my surgery until Friday. So it was like a planned surgery, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure AHS would not approve of me saying this publicly, but that was sort of what happened, right? It was like, we need to get her in. This thing is necrotic. It's not like it's not good. So they did a full mastectomy. Um, and he was like, I don't know how I'm gonna fit. Like, I don't know until we get you on the table how I'm gonna fix you. Might have to do a wound vac where we're holding your skin together until we can skin graft you in a week. You might be in here for a long time. It might be super simple. We might be able to just take what we have and clean it up and carry on. So I went in not knowing, and I was in surgery for 5.5 hours. Nobody expected that. And lost a lot of blood. I lost a liter of blood in that process. They ended up taking out my entire pectoral muscle. They took the whole breast. They took 18 lymph nodes, which isn't a huge amount of lymph nodes for breast issues, but still a lot more than I anticipated because I had no metastasis anywhere going into the surgery, including in
Mm.
my lymph system. So to know that they felt like they had to take out 18 was unnerving. Um, but I woke up the next morning and yeah, the surgeons came in and they're like, we almost lost you. Like you lost a lot of blood. We almost did a transfusion, and at one point you stabilized. We don't know what transpired to make that happen, but yeah, I know.
I already have
Well, maybe we'll have another topic for that
goosebumps.
another day. But yeah, it was, and I did not feel the same. Everything was brighter, lighter, It was very different. It's been very different. I feel completely, yeah, it was a trippy experience. So, but they would
I
say to me,
remember
like,
you
how high
saying
can you
that
raise
to
your
me.
arms for me? This is like hours after surgery. How high can you raise your arm? And I literally was like, this is the arm that's on. So I was like, this, and they're like, what? Because most surgeries, you're lucky if you can get this high after surgery because it's so painful. And I'm like,
Right.
I know. I refused all my pain medications. I wasn't in pain. I had no pain. And I still don't. Like I get weird sensations. The nerves are refiring and stuff still, but when I get weird numbness in my hands, but like nothing that's debilitating. And no one really gets it. They're I'm a complete anomaly. It's kind of funny. It's, I think short of a miracle, I suppose, in a lot of ways. A lot of prayer, a lot of my own internal, dialing in and just knowing that I was going to be okay. Like this is making it very like fluffy. Obviously, there was a lot more involved in it, but I just refused to live in the space that it was going to do anything to me. It was like my body's
Yeah.
protecting me. This is why it's living where it's living. If I lose a breast in the process, that's the cost. I
Right.
definitely did nothing prior to mitigate not getting it. Like I wore my cell phone in my bra all the time. I drank copious amounts of pop, ate fast food and seed oils every day, multiple times a day sometimes. I never walked. I never did any activity. Like I know that I played a huge role in my diagnosis, in my health. And so it was like, only I can fix this. And so, yeah, I just shifted gears. And I'm here to tell you that I'm still like, yeah, I've never had metastasis. Like, there's still like, we don't know how this thing can spread. And my radiation oncology, they wanted me to do chemo and radiation, and that goes back to me with my baseline. And it was the oncologist that had said to me, "What's your like on a scale of 0 to 10? How do you feel?" And I'm like 11, and they were like, "No, like you don't come out of surgery after 4 weeks and say you're fine." And I said, "Well, the difference between me and that others is that you guys
Yeah.
put people through treatment before you do surgery. So you debilitate their immune system, you knock their systems flat to get the cancer shrunk. And then in a month, you give them surgery. And so now they're trying to recover from the beating that the chemo gave them. And now you're asking them to recover from a massive surgery, massive. And then you're asking them how they feel. I didn't have to do the beginning part, thankfully. I didn't want to do the beginning part. That was my whole goal,
Right.
right? And so
Right.
it was like I didn't have to do any of that. So I've actually been super healthy, feel great. And they're like, okay. So I spent 45 minutes
Mhm.
talking to them about, doing chemo after the fact to catch any cells that they couldn't see. And I was like, well, I don't understand that. What are we chasing? What do we baseline that? You're going to give me chemo. You're going to kill my immune system that I've worked my ass off to repair. I feel better than I have my entire life. And so we're
Mhm.
going to take a chemical that's going to knock me down on the off chance that there might be a cell floating in my body. Like by that rationale, you also should be lining up to take chemo because you might have cancer in your body too, right? So
Right.
I was like,
Right.
no, I'm going to treat this holistically. I'm going to keep doing what I'm going to do. Thank you for your time. I went to all the meetings. I went to all the appointments. I felt guilty. I even said to my one radiation doctor, I feel bad for taking this appointment because someone who really does want this treatment could have been meeting with you instead of me. Like I knew going in, I was going to say no. And he's like, no, you need to know the full, like, you need to know all the things. This is an appointment that you deserve. And if the answer is still no, that's fine. But we don't want you to make a decision from a place of like, well, I wish I'd have known, you know? I'm like,
Right.
that's fair.
Right. This is the
So,
thing that I like. Like you're going in, you're getting the education, you're getting the information, and then you're making that, like you used the word before, a radical
radical
point for
responsibility.
radical responsibility for self based on the information you've got, then you're going to your choice. And
Yeah.
I think that's so important for people to hear
Yeah.
because sometimes I think this is where this gets lost between people not choosing treatment and people choosing the holistic route. And me being the social worker, I often got to sit with patients and hear about this
Yeah.
at the cancer center, that space of just how afraid they were that they were just going to be cast aside.
Mhm.
And so they would keep a lot of those things secret that they were doing. But ultimately, I think it's about us just learning that we get to take all the information from all scopes. And you said it before, we can swing way too far this way, and we can swing way too far this way. And we have to be able to come to this space of our balance
Yeah.
and our choice. And that some people are like, and then they change. They say, oh, well, I'm at a point now where I am going to do this. Some people say, nope, I'm never going to do that. And they go this. But again, it really just comes down to personal choice
Yeah.
based on knowing oneself. Like even just watching you on this journey and how dedicated you became to your
Mhm.
walking. Like,
Mhm.
you started doing your lives as you were walking, you started, and I saw it. Like after reading your blog, I mean, I was reading through it and I'm like, holy shit, this is me, this is me, this is me, this is me.
Mhm.
And when I saw that you were like, okay, I gotta get rid of this, I gotta get rid of this, I gotta do this. I remember saying, I don't know if you ever remember that show, Biggest Loser, right? I remember, here's one of my excuses. I remember when I was at my heaviest, that show was on. And I said, well, yeah, I would lose all that weight too if I, had time to exercise for 8 hours, right? Because
Yeah.
again, I was like, well, I'm a mom and I work full time and I
Yeah.
blah 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 blah, my
Exhausted.
excuses.
Yeah.
And there was this moment that I had once I left the corporate world, once my kids were a bit more independent. There was this moment where I looked around and I thought, huh, isn't that interesting? I
Yeah.
do have 8 hours a day. Well, I could literally exercise 8 hours a day if I wanted to. I could make time for it.
Mhm.
And I still didn't.
Yeah.
And that's the difference is
Yeah,
that
I use
I,
being bored.
the
Like I'm bored. I'm
excuses.
bored on my walk. I don't want to walk because I'm bored. It's boring to me. Like it's boring. And so now I'm like, now I'm doing 7K a day. And it's just like I walk the same route. It is boring as heck. But now it's like I'm actually finding where I'm like stopping to take pictures of like the buds on the trees. Or like, over the winter you would have seen on some of my walks or my pictures. I'd like, draw hearts in the snow and like leave little notes in the snow. And like I was just doing these things where I'm like, I don't know who this person is. Like I always have these like out of body experiences with myself where I joke the old Michelle would, and that maybe is part to do with my surgery because that's a whole other topic. But yeah, like there definitely is a before me and an after me. Definitely. And
Wow.
I see things very differently now. Like and you do have to get selfish. Like to your point about being like the mom and like me too. I was like, I work 3 jobs. I have my dogs but like my poor dog at the time, he's since passed away, but like he deserves so much better in the sense that like I never walked him as much as I could have. And then he ended up having, major health, like he died of cancer. He had a luxating patella. Like he had all these health issues that looking back, I don't regret what I did because I got to where I'm at now. So it's not like I'm like in guilt
Hmm.
in that sense. It's more of like an observance where I'm like, oh, I get
Here's
it.
where I
Like I
contributed
actually
to
did him a major
this.
disservice too. Like I wasn't just doing me a disservice. Like everyone's like, you have to walk your dog. Well, he's little. He doesn't
Hmm.
need as many walks as the big dogs do. That's why I got a little dog, right? And it was just all these like BS things. And then there was like this whole I hear about people all the time on the selfish side of things. Like, well, if I take time out for me, then it's time away from my kids, or it's time away from my family, or it's time away from my employer. And it's like, we all need to get, and sounds horrible in a way. I don't even know how to word. You need to get so selfish because you are really all there is. And you can't do anything for your kids if you're dead. You can't do anything for your parents if you're dead. And you can continue to live your life in this like complete, and I know I'm speaking from a pedestal, but it's like I lived that cognitive dissonance where it was like, I
But you're
didn't
doing the
care.
hard work.
I didn't care, right? And it was just like I didn't care. And now I do care. And it's like, no, I do want to be here to help support my
Hmm.
brother for as long as he's alive, and do that. I want to be here to help my parents, as they transition into older age. I want to be here for my nephews and my nieces as they get older. Like I don't, what I was contributing to from a health perspective was a one-way road to not be there for it. And it's like you just have to make a choice of what that looks like. And you do have to get selfish with your time. So, I do put
Hmm.
my phone now. I used to sleep with my phone in my bed. There were times where it would be underneath my pillow, or on my nightstand. It's not. It's in my living room. It's completely far away from me. And at 9:30, most nights, unless something else is going on, I'm offline. Like My sister is still a night owl. Her and I laugh about being night owls. And, she'd be messaging me at midnight and I'd be sleeping for 4 hours by that point. Right. And she's just like, what happened to my night owl conversations? Right. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
I need to sleep now. Like I need to go to bed.
Wow.
So,
Wow. I love
it's
that.
just one of those things where like now I need to walk outside and I have to walk barefoot. Now I need to be in the sun. I used to avoid the sun. Now I crave it. I need to be in it. You know, uh, Now I make sure I have my fruits and my vegetables and I'm not restrictive on, the health side of the food swing. I'm a little bit less strict than I was when I was in active disease, just because, I was
Hmm.
chasing that. But now I'm a little bit more like, okay, no, I'll enjoy a few things once in a while. Like I'm not gonna deprive. It doesn't have to be
Right.
all or if you're
Yeah.
in active disease, it does have to
This,
be all or nothing. If you're in active disease,
right.
I will 100% preach you need to be all or nothing. There can be no gray lines. There can be no nuance. It's like you need to pick what works for you and stick to that. If you're going to chase it that way. But when you're out of that, then it's like, okay, now you can ease up and just start to enjoy things again. And I can feel instantly if something I ate is not right, like
Wow.
instantly.
So that was a
Yeah.
big
And I never
shift for
could
you.
before.
The
Yeah.
awareness. Wow.
Yeah. So
Wow.
there's just a lot of weird
Yeah.
things, right? Like I notice a lot more things,
Um,
but grass is definitely greener in a lot of ways. And that's just not a
um,
metaphor. Like it's crazy to me, the colors of things. And, that could be just the clearance of the depression too, in a lot of ways, right? Where,
or the alignment of
yeah,
like, you know, I'm thinking of this like soul self and physical
yeah,
Michelle coming into alignment. It's like it is
yeah,
to me that would feel like holy, like
yeah.
like new, so
It's
new.
new. I mean, I'll give this little tidbit before we close off. But yeah, I mean, in my surgery, I was definitely given an option while I was asleep. And that option was between me and my surgeon. And like everyone's like, oh, there'll be a higher power. It was a soul contract. I 100% believe that. This might be really woo-woo for a lot of people, but I
No, I
do
think
have
this is amazing.
I do have remembrance of him and I chatting in my surgery. I was out, obviously. So it wasn't like he and I were like chit-chatting while he was cutting me up. It was more of the higher selves chatting. And it was like, look, I can fix you, but like, what are we doing? And at that point,
Wow.
my tumor went from non-detectable to 16 centimeters. Like that's what they removed at surgery. And it was embedded in my pectoral muscle. So he ended up having to make that decision to remove it. And that was what caused the blood loss. But I think at that point was when I had to make the decision. Are you staying or are you going? Because every doctor that I talked to, my surgeon included, was like, at some point you stabilize and we don't know how that happened. And I'm pretty sure at the decision
You're like,
that
I
I
think
made
I
to come
do. I
back
think
was
I do.
that, right? But it took me weeks to figure that out. Like I didn't, it wasn't like I woke up from surgery and was like, I had this epiphany. It was weeks and weeks and weeks later that I would be sitting on my couch and all of a sudden I'd get this like hit that I'd had this conversation with him. And I'd be like, am I making this up? And then it'd be like, and because I could never see it, I just had this like feeling.
Feeling or knowing.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And the more I kind of like sat with it, the more I was like, oh no, 100%. We had a conversation and I think he'd be like, you're nuts because he's very obviously allopathic and that's the belief system. But I think, from a spiritual perspective, he and I definitely were meant to meet because I could have had any other surgeon. And he was the one who I was assigned to. And if you read my blog, it'll make more sense because I didn't expect to get
Yeah.
him. Right. And yeah, there was just this like cosmic lineup of timing of like, there's no rationale behind it. You can't make sense of any of
Hmm.
it. And
And there was.
and there was, and yeah, and so I do believe now that, I'm trying to slowly remember it and kind of piece it together a little bit better, but it might be just
Yeah.
one of those things where you experienced it and it's lost, to the degree that I want to remember it like perfectly. But yeah, I do think he and I had a conversation and there were other energies around us that were, in the holding pattern waiting, like what's the decision? Because if we need to be called in, we're coming in. And if we don't, we're just back here waiting kind of a thing. And yeah, I was like, no, I'm not ready to I'm not ready to call the call. Like I'm not ready to pull the pin on this thing. So he stitched me
Right.
up to the point that I have very minimal scar. I got a scar, obviously, but it's so minimal. It looks like it's 3 years old. It doesn't look like it's 8 months old. I'm fully functional. I feel better than I ever had. Yeah, there's just
Wow.
But it was the catalyst. It was the biggest blessing being diagnosed
Mm,
with stage 3 triple negative breast cancer that I could have ever had. There is no other diagnosis that would have shooken me out of my state more than that. Right. So
right.
it was like it had to be, I mean, stage 3, as you know, is not that's not what you want. And the reason I got the stage was not because of metastasis, it was because of the sheer size of the tumor. But the fact that this thing did not metastasize to begin with is mind blowing all on its own. But yeah, it was
Mm,
but it was the biggest blessing. There's no question. There's just no
yeah.
question. Yeah.
Yeah.
Weird to even say that,
Well,
but
thank,
that's the last time
yeah.
I'll ever say the
I
word
know. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
No, no, I totally know what you're saying with that
Yeah.
because it's that space of I love being able to see that
Yeah.
you're sharing your story, you're um taking the reins. And I just love that word, radical responsibility. Um and it's the autonomy, the sovereignty, like it's coming back to self.
Well, COVID was a
And
big blessing
I
for that too, because if COVID had not hit, I
yeah,
was not dialed into that either. So that's a whole, I mean, this is such a whole, like, there's so many layers, right? But
yeah.
yeah, I mean,
But I think that's the thing.
COVID was a huge
It's
lesson for me on how I navigated that. And yeah, and then it was like, okay, if I navigated this, then I can navigate that. Like, it was just one of those things where, like, the more I kind of dialed into that, like, knowing of who I am and
yeah.
what I wanted and how I want to kind of move through this life, yeah, it just COVID was a sort of I mean, the other ones were my catalyst. COVID was like the next sort of wake up call, where I pushed against the
Yeah.
grain a bit. And then this one was huge. Like this one was like probably the biggest uphill battle. But had I not
Yeah.
gone through COVID, had we not gone through COVID collectively, had I not had the health experiences that I had, you and I may not even be sitting here talking today, right? Like it's just such a
Hmm.
weird
Hmm.
synchronicity to think like, that experience got me to the meditation part, that got me to, doing Christine's work, to doing Mel's events, to doing, meeting with you, and then having the sickness all throughout that thing and just kind of going through these waves. It's like, there's no mistakes.
Hmm.
There are no
Yeah.
mistakes. There are no coincidences. Um, and I do think
Well,
that the journey was laid out a long time ago. And hopefully now the rest of my journey is just kind of like coasting from here on it. But I also do feel like, and I know we've gone really long, I feel like I'm being chased, not in a bad way. So I do know that any letting go of this grip that I have um, is a complete renege on my contract.
right.
So every walk that
Right.
I do is not because I want to, I
Hmm.
promise. But I also like go out and I'm like, oh yeah, I needed to do this. Like I do crave it, but I don't like people like what motivates you. I literally am being chased. Like that's the only word I can express, and it's not like a scary thing. It's just more of that.
Right.
Like I literally feel like someone's constantly, got their hand on my back, being like, remember, you agreed.
So do you think it's different than being chased, but it's like support, like when you say that hand on
Guided.
my back, sort
Yeah,
of like
guided. Maybe guided
guided
is
or
the
supported?
better word. Yeah, I say chase because it just feels like that. Like it feels like I've constantly got something behind, and it's not negative. It's not an ominous
Yeah,
feeling.
that's what,
It's
huh.
not. It's very much like when I stood kind of in the surgery, how I felt like there was like this wall of energy that was there kind of waiting for me to make my decision. That's the wall that I feel. Like it's this like energy field that's kind of like pushing me to be like the second you lean back, we're gonna let go, kind of a thing, right? Like it's more that like we're
Right.
holding you. I'm supporting myself, obviously, but like I know I got big support. But I do like I feel like the support vessel is thicker than
Mhm.
it
If
ever
you
was.
continue to support yourself, we'll continue to support you.
Yes, and I can
But the
feel
moment,
that.
yeah,
I can feel it
wow,
now where I couldn't
wow.
feel it before, right? Be like, well, where is God? Where is my spirit guides? Where are my, where's the support when I needed it? Like,
Mm,
oh, boo hoo. Now I do feel like that wall of push, right? And it definitely is a resistance push. Like I do, like and I'm going like this back and forth, right? Like if I
yeah,
in church now, I literally like I'm constantly feeling like I'm in some form of like energetic weird bubble. It's weird. It's a whole other probably another 2 hour
beautiful.
conversation. But yeah, it's super strange to be in it because I do look at it from old eyes where I'm like, oh, this is so bizarre. Like I recognize how
Yeah.
bizarre it sounds. But at the same time, it's just my normal now. Like it's my new
When
normal.
you're living it.
Right? Yeah, it's the way I
Mhm.
live. And so I do like when I go for a walk, it's like I do, yeah. I go because I have to, not because I want to. And at the same time, I know that if I stop that, that the slope to decline is very quick. Like I know that I can't
Yeah.
not do that. Like it's a non-negotiable.
Hmm.
So
Wow.
yeah.
Well, thank you,
Oh,
Michelle, for
thank
all of
you.
this.
I know I went
I
really
think
long
people
compared to
list
normal, but yeah, it's like it's hard to tell it
that's
all.
fine. That's fine. And I'm going to share your blog. I'm going to share
Mhm.
your
Thank you.
stuff so people can kind of go through that too because I know
Yeah.
when I read it like a lot of those points hit home and
Yeah.
so I think people listening to this as well. So
Yeah, that's my only
thank
goal. Like I
you.
tell my nephew now, he's like, Auntie, you need to write a book. And I'm like, someday. But I'm like, my only goal now is just that someone goes, like if someone's going through this, just to know that it's not like it doesn't matter. It's not a death sentence. And even if it is, it's okay. Like it's okay.
Mhm.
Like we're all gonna be
It's
okay,
how we,
right?
yeah. And whether it's cancer, whether it's anything, but it's that
Anything.
ability to be able to take control of
Yes.
our own situation rather
Yeah.
than
And our
give up our
healing, like we can
power.
heal. We
Mhm.
can heal. We have the capacity to heal. And we've
Mhm.
just lost touch with that so much,
Yeah.
right? Like we've lost touch with that inner knowing. Like we've talked a lot about me dialing in and you know, I can see it now in people everywhere. Like it's wild to watch
Mhm.
because I'm just like, oh, I just want to like snap you in, but like nobody could have snapped me back in. So I
No, that
can't, right? I can
that's
only share
that's right.
now and hope that someone listening to this goes, oh, I get it. What the heck?
Yeah.
Like I'm
Because
gonna
we
do
never know when that
you
snap moment
don't.
might be.
No, and
Yeah.
mine was a slow burn. It
Excellent.
took 15 years. So
Yeah.
just be easy on yourself. I think there's just a lot of grace and patience and yeah. But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having
Beautiful.
me.
Thank